You're listening to the Gabster Radio Podcast, where souls meet in conversation.
Hello friends, we have the honor today to be here with Professor Warren Smith. He has a Bachelor in Fine Arts in Film Production from the University of North Carolina School of the Arts, as well as a Master of Fine Arts in Filmmaking. He has written, produced, and directed several short films and the full feature-length film As the Crow Flies. He is currently a professor of film and video-related classes and a volunteer firefighter, I'm told. You might recognize him from his video on critical thinking in defense of J.K. Rowling, which went viral in the last couple of months. Warren, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the Gabster Radio Podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. I'm excited to have someone in the field of film and video. It's one of my biggest loves in life. I guess I involve myself around the music community too much. It's just how it is. I also love music, but I love filmmaking as well. And up to this point, I haven't had a chance to have someone like you in the platform. I always talk to musicians mostly.
Cool, got
so
it.
I'm excited to nerd out a bit about movies and such.
Cool, let's dive in.
Yeah, so like I know you're also very passionate for filmmaking. I did take the opportunity to watch a bunch of your short films and such. Today I watched the one that you said is your favorite. It's Teal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was one of the earlier
That one was
ones.
really, really pretty, and the
Thank
acting
you.
was really good.
Yeah,
I
think
love
that.
that.
Was one of the best performances.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I also watched the short for the Scholar Society,
That's
which,
pretty rough.
by the way, yeah, I
What
know
did you think?
you wrote there. That's like kind of like an experiment for the full
Yeah.
feature length,
Yeah,
right?
What did you think? Was it too confusing?
No, like what I was gonna tell you, I enjoyed it because it gave me a little bit of a mindfuck, for lack of a better expression.
That's what I was going for.
I don't know if you intended this. Probably not, but I think you put a lot of yourself on that story that you're developing. So, like me as a viewer of your YouTube content, for example, like you talk about a lot of the things that you talk about in the movie, like the Fibonacci sequence or how the pyramids are built. Like, especially on that video, like a teacher asks me if I believe in God. You talk a lot about those things. So while I was watching the short and beforehand I watched your videos, I'm having like a little the OA from Netflix or something moment, like a fourth wall. Like, what the heck?
Very cool.
Is he trying to break the fourth wall? Is he creating a real society? What's going on? Probably not intended, but that's the effect that it gave me.
That's great. I'm glad.
Yeah. What is it like that makes you so passionate about filmmaking? What is it that you love the most about it?
Just ever since I was a kid, I think the actor that had the most impact on me would be Heath Ledger. I was in high school, about to go to film school in those years. Let's see, because he died in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, so actually
Yeah,
I
that's very
had
tragic.
been in college 2 years before going to UNC School of the Arts for 4 years there. So yeah, I remember he passed right before. So anyways, but those small independent movies, just something that really grabbed me. Something about being able to create worlds, to tell stories. It's the combination of music, photography. It's all those mediums come together on screen when you're watching a movie. It's the ultimate that we have at this moment in time. I'm sure things will evolve over the years, but at the moment it seemed like the coolest. Watching something like Indiana Jones, there's so many movies that I would just get really into it.
Yeah.
Probably too into it, Sherlock Holmes and things like that. As a kid, I would really embody it and want to be in that world, and so it just resonated a lot with me.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like how you say like a combination of different arts. I had a film scorer previously on the show, also talking about like just the magic of putting music and video together. It's very unique. So we're fortunate to have that in our time, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Heath Ledger. Do you agree with me that he was still the best Joker, even after the performance from Joaquin Phoenix?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
He's the baddest, right?
Hands down. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I love the Joker with Joaquin, but no, like Heath Ledger definitely kills that. Some would say that he died for that role. What do you think about that?
Well, he died right in the middle of Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus by Terry Gilliam, so technically he died.
Oh, I've seen that
movie.
too. Oh, okay.
It's a very small movie. Not many people know about it, but I really like that movie, actually.
I have
very
seen
strange,
it.
but I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
good. They used to play it for some reason. You're right, like it's pretty indie, but for
Mhm.
some reason they played it like back in Mexico City where I grew up. They just played it on the Open TV, like the one that's free. They played it quite a lot, which is kind of funny now that I think about it.
Interesting.
Like I told you on the email, I wanted to talk a bit with you about like the importance of good stories. I mean, that video that went viral is like due to J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter, which of course is a great story. I'm a millennial, so of course I would say that. And I gave you a couple of quotes as well. Like, for example, with C.S. Lewis, he said, "Since it's so likely that children will meet cruel enemies, let them at least have heard of brave knights and heroic courage. Otherwise, you're making their destiny not brighter, but darker." So what do you think about that? Do you have anything to add? And
There's just a lot of truth to it.
yeah,
Allowing kids to realize that the monsters do exist, and that when you enter the unknown, danger is real. Like, so in Harry Potter, he gets bit by the basilisk, and he multiple occasions he pretty much dies. I mean, at the very end he dies and comes back, but the basilisk as well. He was basically out for the count, facing death, and then Fox flies in and saves him at the last moment. But I think there's some, it's different than stories where everything's always okay, because danger is real when you're in the unknown and in the world. So there's something to preparing kids and students for the reality of everything, the harsh reality of everything, rather than trying to sugarcoat it.
Yeah, I agree. And not also kids, right? Just like adults too, like any individual. Like, we need good stories to look up to, I guess.
It's how we make sense of the world.
Yeah. I like another trend that I've noticed is like the opposite of that, like way too dark cinema or way too dark TV shows.
Like what?
Like I have like a little list. I just did like a thought experiment about this, because I realized like on the past maybe 5 years, there's some shows that I like try to start watching, and I couldn't get through them, not because it was too dark or too realistic or anything. I felt like I couldn't maybe relate to the characters, or I felt like there was no good guys in the story at all, which kind of like depressed me or something. I don't know if you've noticed that trend, but like I wrote, for example, Peaky Blinders, Breaking Bad, Vikings, Yellowstone. I watch, and these are like masterpieces. They're so well written and so well shot and directed, but a lot of them I couldn't get through. Just like I was like, okay, who's the good guy in the story, or like who am I rooting for exactly?
Well, there's some wisdom to that as well, though. I really like Peaky Blinders, but I see what you mean. But let's ask the question about that, because I think there's some wisdom as well in the idea that there are no inherently good guys or inherently bad guys. There's a bit of the bad and the good. Thomas Shelby, he has the capacity to be bad. You know, there's that line in Peaky Blinders when the bartender says to him, he goes, "You're bad men. It's funny, everyone in this town wants you to win this fight. You're bad men, but you are bad men." And I mean, Sopranos is a classic example one of the first ones that really took the villain character. I mean, that led to Breaking Bad. You know, the anti-hero, the anti-hero. But yeah, I mean, I think there's some wisdom to it. But
I've also heard like the argument that, for example, in Breaking Bad, they are all good guys and the bad guy is like the system.
What system? How would you define the system?
I don't know. I didn't make that argument. It was my friend.
That would be my question.
So
I'd say, well, what is the system?
I agree with it, but
There's
I suppose like
guys,
maybe like the healthcare system in the U.S., for example, that he has to resort to like doing illegal stuff just to get like deal with his cancer, right?
That's interesting.
Perhaps you could make that argument. I wonder.
Perhaps, or just the world itself, the reality of the world.
Right.
Yeah, the fact that it's unfair and things don't always go the way you want, and then time passes, and that there seems to be this frustration that the people who break the rules. That's why we watch gangster movies. That's why we like Peaky Blinders, because he's willing to take matters into his own hands, and we like watching characters that don't play by the rules.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Because we can live vicariously through them.
For sure. There's another one, like I thought it was pretty dark, but this one I actually watched the whole way through because something kept me going. True Detective. Have you seen that one?
The first season was great.
The first season. I'm specifically talking about the first season, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
that was a good
I don't
show.
know, like I also got that vibe, like okay, who's the good guy here? La, la, la. Like, but something kept me going all throughout the show. And like you really see the character arc of like Matthew McConaughey. Like I don't know, it really paid off for me. The ending, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that one is really good, right? Like the first season.
Yeah, for sure.
Have you seen the new one, the fourth one?
I tried watching the second season. I started watching the new one. I didn't even make it through the first episode. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Have you?
I watched 3 episodes and then I got bored.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sometimes they can like replicate their own magic or something.
No.
The curse of the sequels or something like that.
Yeah, well, it's that elusive, intangible thing. It's impossible to replicate.
Right. That's what you said about the Oscars, right? Like that's what the Oscars should represent. That shouldn't be Barbie, but whatever.
Right. Well, it didn't win. I thought for a moment it might.
Yeah, but it didn't. So back to the like good stories and kids having something to look up to. Do you think like today we have enough of those like great stories, like transcendental stories that kids can look up to?
No, we seem to have a shortage.
Definitely.
And are not, well, I mean, there's a lot of different potential reasons why, but there's definitely, I think we could all notice and all agree that whether you're talking about just movies in theaters, like we were just talking about the Oscars, look at what was at the Oscars. It was really one movie competing. Like it just one movie just swept through. So that's gotten more visible than ever. And then on Netflix, there seems to now and then there will be something interesting, but I've noticed a difference, and there's a lot of reasons for that. So if there's not enough movies, if there's not enough solid stories for adults, then it'd be logical that there's not enough for kids either.
Yeah, for sure. Like not even like general stories, like you said. Like I would maybe watch Netflix and maybe once in a year. I think the last like great thing that I saw on Netflix, like great thing, was The Queen's Gambit.
Me too.
Which was like 2019.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that. Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, like then that was like 2019 or 2020, right?
Yeah.
And every now and then there's like a little glimpse of something. But
here's a fun fact about
sadly.
Queen's Gambit. Heath Ledger was going to direct Queen's Gambit before he died. He was going to direct Queen's Gambit as a movie. Heath Ledger.
Really?
That's what I hear.
Wow. I didn't know that.
And, apparently they were developing it, and that was going to be his feature directorial debut.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I did hear like they were trying to make it for like 20 years or so, right? But they just kept rejecting, like, oh no, you can't make a movie about chess. It's gonna be so boring.
Yep.
That's super cool. And you being a fan of Heath, like, imagine if that had happened.
I really liked the show, though. I thought it was great.
Yeah, that was really good. Like the struggle of genius and like facing reality, or and the art, like in its way, like chess, it's an art. It's in its own way. So like the struggle of being a genius and having to cope with that.
Absolutely.
Really beautiful. I love
it was
that
very
story.
good.
It made me play chess again. I'm sad to report.
Me too. I tried. I'm not very good at it, but I tried. I play with the students sometimes.
Do you play on chess.com or something?
No, I was playing with one of my students who's really good at it, so I'd play with him at school. So
that's cool.
That's
cool. Yeah, like regular chess players kind of like look down on the Queen's Gambit horde, right? They're like, oh yeah, you started playing because you watched the show.
Oh well.
Yeah, in my defense, like I mean, I have pictures of me playing chess when I was a little kid, but I never took it seriously, and the show did like move something in me that made me wanna try better, I guess. So keep it up with your students.
Like sales of chessboards went up like 1,000% or something.
Yeah.
So it shows the power of stories.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great example. Like, also, I mean, I don't know if you know Twitch. I have a lot of Twitch people on my show, but like live streaming in general. Some people just like people that stream chess maybe had like 40 average viewers, and now they have like 17,000 average viewers after the show. Yeah, so like they can absolutely just like make a living now out of streaming chess since the show happened. Before there was not that much interest, so that's interesting. That's really nice.
Yeah.
Like you say, the power of stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like I would argue one of the reasons why there's not that many great stories lately, it's of course like one of the things that everyone's talking about recently, the D.E.I policies. What are your thoughts on that, and do you feel like it, like, I mean, I follow a film critic called Chris Gore.
Oh yeah.
And he said something, you know him. He said something that moved me, that it was like we want to be entertained, not lectured. When you go to a movie theater, like you want to be entertained, you don't want to feel like someone's lecturing you, which kind of makes sense to me. And yeah, like, do you have any thoughts, and like, do you agree that's one of the reasons why this is happening with stories?
Yes, absolutely. I definitely agree with that. I think there's a lot of factors causing this problem. Well, some of them, a lot of them are financial, because it's more financially viable to bank on a previously established IP, or to make a remake of a Disney movie that's already been made and do it live action. Because the cost of movies, there's so much wasteful spending, and that's a whole conversation in itself why that is. But so the more a movie costs, the less likely you are to take a chance on something like a Queen's Gambit as a feature, or an indie, or anything that's original. Because movies, just to begin with, it's a miracle if you make any money off a movie at all. But the studios and the industry, there's so much money behind the marketing, they kind of just force things through. It's that forcing of it that is drawing criticism, and rightfully so. I agree with everything I've heard Chris Gore talk about. I think he's very smart. He was one of the first people I heard question the film industry as someone in the industry. I remember hearing him talk back in film school online, and I thought that was very interesting. I didn't know who he was at the time, but it was really interesting. So, and he was saying, what were you just saying? He was saying
about like that you want to be entertained, not lectured.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, if you feel like it's being, because here's how I would characterize it. If the story doesn't feel organic, so when I'm writing, I'm going to write for me. I'm going to write what I want to see on the screen. I'm not tailoring it to any demographic or a festival or a genre, really. I mean, you'd kind of have yeah, there is that genre element, but I think it's when we feel that it's not, because that's actually less common than you think. It sounds logical to write what you want to see, but a common conversation you'll have if you're pitching to a producer or an agent, a studio executive, they'll say, "Oh, this isn't the right time for that movie. Those movies aren't popular right now." So Queen's Gambit, for example, we were just talking about, it took how many years to try and get that, because they kept saying no one wants to see that. And the thing you have to keep in mind is no one knows anything in Hollywood. Now, if a phenomena is a phenomenon because no one expects it, and they're always chasing their tail in that sense, where they're always trying to tailor, and the very act of tailoring it removes that organic element that is authenticity and passion, which is why at the beginning of this conversation we're talking about what about independent films resonate with me. It was that aspect, because that's where that kind of writing occurs. That's
risks. Exactly what Chris Gore says as well.
Yeah.
That he loves indie film because of that.
Yeah. It's the auteur aspect of it. It's almost there's so many cooks in the kitchen, there's so many people at that higher studio level, there's so much money and executives and test screenings, and it's almost impossible for a single person. I mean, yeah, you have Christopher Nolan and Tarantino who are able to do auteur at that level. It's very few.
Tom Cruise, perhaps, right?
Yeah, and I guess Greta Gerwig now, she's probably, with her next movie, she'll have the ability to do things, but that's like 4 people I can even think of. So
nice. You almost like answered like the other question that I had, which is like, because I know you've written too, so like as a screenwriter, like you can confirm like when they give you like boxes to tick, that sort of messes with the whole process and the whole story, right? It must be so.
Yeah, I mean, it's different to tick boxes and tailor it for those boxes. That's different than trying to understand story structure and structure your story around the first act. Call to action. You know what I mean? So there is thought that goes into it, but that's different than what we're talking about.
That's part of the art, right?
Yeah.
It's funny when you were describing like the issue with like how you said that the film industry, they don't wanna like gamble, they don't wanna bet. It sounds exactly like what they're saying about the music industry and why it's so hard to find like maybe like authentic artists, authentic music, because of the same reason. Like there's less of a gamble of like, okay, I'm gonna bet on this band that I saw in a bar performing. It's like they just want more of the same formula.
I hear that when it comes to distribution, I mean, there's a lot of problems with distribution in movies. I hear that the music industry is even worse. As far as like the deals, the way the deals are structured and how they can just screw over the filmmakers, right? Where there's no market caps on marketing costs, and you don't. But anyway, but the good side is that this landscape, you can just through YouTube, I could reach a larger audience than I could before then.
For sure.
Yeah, with Amazon.
You find your own audience.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. So.
Yeah, a good challenge to overcome, I guess. So those are the problems that it has, like the D.E.I. in the movie industry as a filmmaker, but also like as a viewer. Do you feel like it pulls you out of the immersion when you're like maybe watching a movie with friends or something, and something like that pops
I was just
up.
watching it the other day, or I was just watching. It was a Star Wars one.
Like one of the new shows?
Yeah,
or
one
movie?
of the new shows, and it just felt one of the characters. It just
completely popping out.
It just felt forced. It goes back to that forcefully checking the box off. Rings of Power.
I didn't even bother with that one.
It's fun as a thought experiment to see. Yeah, it just The Witcher. It's just over and over. You know, it's because there's a way you can go about diversity. So Game of Thrones did a good job of diversity.
For sure.
And they grounded it within the story. So you have people from different regions look different, and that's reflective of the geographical region which they're in.
Exactly.
And it makes sense. It all ties together. It doesn't. Yeah, but it'll be interesting to see House of the Dragon, because even that, I feel like that's working. I don't think that's pulling me out. And you have
the first
diversity
season,
in that
right?
cast, right? I mean, there's something. They just succeed a bit more. Maybe there's more thought put into it. Why are they able to do it in Rings of Power?
I guess they were already like, for example, Disney. I saw a meme the other day, like Disney was better at diversity before they tried. Like you look at Mulan, you look at Lilo and Stitch,
That's
and
a good point.
Pocahontas. Yeah,
that's a good quote.
Yeah, they were way better before they tried.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe now, with the House of the Dragon, now that it's been made, in the woke times, it works. How do they do it? Maybe that's the good question. We should ask them or something.
I'm excited to see Daily Wire's Pendragon cycle. They're basically making their own.
I'm excited
Game of
too.
Thrones.
Yeah,
I really. They emailed because I said something about it on YouTube, and I got an email from somebody there that it was just like, hey, it was probably an automated thing. Hey, you mentioned this on social media. If here's some behind the scenes footage, though, I think it was all public. But that I would love to. I should probably. I would love to do that. Do an episode just covering Pencycle. And maybe if I could if I could just get a short interview with somebody to get something unique to share, like a unique perspective or some unique information, that could be really cool. But I think, anyways, but that aside, I think that has...
You should totally do that. I'm super excited for that show.
I wish I could. I'll try. If you know anybody, let me know. If anybody hears this, reach out to me if you know anybody. But I think we're on the cusp.
Let's push.
If this does succeed, if this does become successful on the level of a Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, just imagine the impact that would make, because we've never seen a contender in this space. We've never seen a company work outside the union system alone. Let's just take that. In America, overseas, yes. Mexico, yes. India, other countries, England. But in America, no one has ever worked outside the union system until now. An American company. Yes, they're not filming it entirely in America, but it's within the industry, the American industry.
And they're also trying to do it with the Snow White thing, right? I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, with Snow White. I haven't.
They just made
I don't
they're
know if
making
they're
their
even
own
in production
version
yet on that, because she's filming her shows, her podcast shows, and some comment section, and jumping in on Pendragon. So I imagine they're very busy. They were capitalizing on the attention when they needed to announce it. I don't think that footage is even going to appear in the movie, what we saw. I think they're probably going to start from scratch. And,
you think it was just like a little teaser thing?
Yeah, it was just to capitalize on the conversation at the time. That's not a criticism.
Yeah, definitely shook Disney, though.
Yeah, maybe. I hope they did. But that's what's so good. Someone needs to stand up. Right?
They changed the dwarves, I think, suspiciously right about that time that trailer came out. Some weeks after or something, they changed the dwarves.
I don't know what attributed to that. Maybe they just got so much pushback. I don't know. But it's cool, though, that's within the copyright of it, the IP, the intellectual property. It's interesting that one falls within the realm that anybody could go make it. Right? So I think,
that's cool.
Like Sherlock Holmes, for example, anyone could go make Sherlock Holmes.
I think in 2050 or something, the same thing's gonna happen to Lord of the Rings, Tolkien's work. So let's see what happens.
Wow.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Back to the immersion thing. Do you I don't know, if you sometimes do movie nights, hang out with friends, or just with girlfriend or something, just sit down and watching stuff. Do you ever feel because not everyone is a movie nerd or a film producer, right? I think us that are more well, I mean, I don't have a master's in filmmaking, but I'm a film person. I consider myself. I did communication and such. I think it's easier for us to like pick up on that, like the D.E.I stuff when you're watching something like maybe like from episode 1 or episode 2. So like if I'm watching with friends that are like that, like love film, like you can easily like make a comment and like, oh my God, this again, and like let's find something else to watch. But if you're watching it with like other people that maybe aren't as into filmmaking or they're not aware of the whole process and such, sometimes like maybe you have to hold back a bit because you can look weird if you make a comment right away. I don't know if it has happened to you.
I guess. Yeah, I don't generally. I guess I don't talk that much when I'm watching a show or something. I'm thinking about it to myself. You know, I don't, unless I'm gonna do a video, then I'll say it in the video. Or if I'm going to use it in class or something, or usually it's an internal thing within me. I like to keep that stuff quiet. So yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, maybe I'm more external. Yeah, like I'm watching stuff. Like I'm with friends. Let's put up something, you know.
If I'm watching,
and I'm like, I just sit up and like we pop up one Netflix show on something, and I'm like 10 minutes in. I'm like, all right, who's gonna be gay now? And then like I'm like, there's one gay character, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And then there comes another 2 or 3 or such, and I'm like, okay, guys, I'm out.
Interesting. What area are you in geographically?
Right now, I moved to Portugal because my girlfriend's from here, so I kind of wanted to like break the whole long distance thing. So for now, we're living here. Yeah. Okay. Then we want to move somewhere else.
In Portugal, is this conversation? A common conversation in Portugal? People are like, oh, look, they're doing this again with D.E.I and casting.
I feel like yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
I feel like yes, but also like I was telling you, like if you're within the group of people that like even a little bit like are into filmmaking and such, because if it's just like a normal person, no, like it's not a conversation at all. It's just like they just consume it. Like they just, they just pop up Netflix and open up Cleopatra being portrayed as black or whatever, and it's just like absolutely normal.
Interesting.
Which is the same in America, I guess.
Yeah.
I was telling you also on the email, like you call this whole situation on your YouTube channel, you call it the mob, right? The mob is coming for me. The mob came.
Oh, well, that's just the game kind of on YouTube. So you just got to have interesting thumbnails, but at the time it felt like a mob. I don't really think the mob isn't. I don't feel mobbed at the moment. Let's say at the time I felt a bit mobbed. That was just because it was
for sure
in the wake of one video.
But it's getting better, you would say now with your channel. Oh, so that's really nice.
I think so. Yeah, I don't like when I publish a video now. Today I just published one, and I didn't see.
I saw it.
Oh, did you watch it yet?
Yeah, it was really cool.
You thought it was interesting, or
you thought it was really nice.
I wasn't sure. I haven't talked to anybody.
Well, I was a bit upset that you were giving the example of the pineapple on pizza, because I absolutely believe that is the case. You should have pineapple on pizza.
It's a sense that I was thinking about that all week. I'm so relieved to have been done because I filmed that this morning and then published it. So I've been thinking about it for the last, I'd say, 4 days, just nonstop, trying to think of what I would say.
Yeah,
because I feel like it's sensitive and
that's really good.
Oh, thank you.
I love what you did with the whiteboard and like the boats and the subtext with the ocean. That was really cool. I never seen it explained like that.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad there's some value in that for you. But I actually learned that chart in a directing class.
Oh,
I believe I forget exactly where, because it's used for when you're teaching students how to work with actors. That's where that comes from. That's what I used when I'm talking about, because that's really what an actor wants to know in the scene. They're less concerned with the lines. You can memorize the lines, but it's what's the motivation behind all the lines. That's like a good actor is thinking about all that. That's more important. So anyway, so that's where that diagram came from. But I forgot your original. I was talking about something else before I.
Don't worry. I think it's cool that like you're basically, you pull that from filmmaking as well. So you're kind of teaching critical thinking with the filmmaking mindset, or like
yeah,
the
I think it
culture
all
of
ties
it.
together. I guess.
For sure. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Anyways, I forgot what else.
oh no, we were talking about the mob, and
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that, like, I always refer to it just like woke culture, but I've seen like some streamers, like some YouTube channels that I follow recently, like just like super recently, started calling it a cult, and I thought that was hilariously true. Like I have in my past have some experiences with people in cults, so I found that really funny. Just like if you Google "signs you're in a cult," like you can pull up some articles, and you would find stuff like, I think I pinned it here, something like number 1, opposing critical thinking. So that one's hits
Oh.
home for you. Number 2, isolating members and penalizing them for leaving. So that's interesting as well.
Oh.
There's
Yeah,
some
this-
talk about love bombing also.
Huh. Yeah, and
Rites
there's
of
definitely some of all of
passage.
that in it.
Yeah.
But maybe it's because what purpose does a cult serve? A cult, it's inclusion, making you feel like you're part of something larger than yourself, something that provides answers to the unanswerable aspects of life.
Yeah.
Right? So if the cult, why are you interested in the cult? Well, it tells you that this is going to happen when you die, and this is how you can make sense of the world. And well, that's kind of similar. This is why you're downtrodden. This is why the world is unfair, and this is why you're a victim. And if you do what we say, then you will be part of the mass. You'll be part of something larger than yourself, and you won't be alone, and you'll be supported. And it's all emotion.
Mm-hmm. That's literally what I have here on the screen says, like, solution for alienated and vulnerable people. And look at this one. They identify as victims of the world outside.
There you go.
That one rings a bell. They are promised a rebirth, a new body or new identity. That sounds interesting too.
Yep.
And point number 7, witch hunts. That hits home as well.
Yep. Yeah.
Internal trials within the cult, weeding out all potential traitors. Doubters are shamed into falsely accusing others.
And a lot of this is resonating with this last video that we were just talking about from today.
Mm-hmm.
The this little feud that's kind of happening around, because I would describe myself as a Christian. I made a video on that.
Mm-hmm.
It's this dogmatic interpretation, though, and imposing that on others.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's this outing of, Daily Wire needs to be outed, and Shapiro and outed, and
Yeah.
it's still this. There's a lot of the aspects of what we were just saying. It's thinking that you have a solution for the world that brings you emotional peace, but for some reason there's something built into it that requires this evangelical aspect that requires the need to say you need to do this, and it's so important for this subset of people, and I don't understand it. The fact that they need. I recognize your right to try to do that, but they feel this. If you listen to these response videos, they've been saying it is an objective fact that Christ is king, and
yeah,
it's a
you said something in the
fact.
yeah.
It's logically not it's not objectively true. It can be for you. I'm not saying that I don't believe that. It's just it's not logically consistent.
Yeah, like you said something like I respect the, I can't remember, I can't quote you, but like it's okay to like, hey, this has worked very well for me, so it might work for you, right?
For you.
Mm-hmm.
That's
but it's the moment when you go like full evangelical, maybe.
Yeah, but it's the moment. Yeah, where if you don't, because it's just language. If you don't say the things that.
It's kind of like Black Lives Matters, but in reverse now.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to. Exactly. Like if you said the phrase Black Lives Matter 10 years ago, it means something different than it means now.
Yeah, they're changing the meaning of things.
Because it's symbolic of something larger. It's now a phrase used by a movement. So if you don't think that there can be a movement behind another phrase, it's just not logically consistent.
Right. And I resonate with what you're saying because, and funny enough, it ties back to the conversation about like how you see things in the US and how you see things in other parts of the world. Like I'm also, I would consider myself a Christian. I'm Catholic, but I've been to the US many times, and I've always have like this, like, I don't know if I would be able to be a Catholic or even Christian or anything if I lived in the US, because I feel like sometimes it's harder to find like the less fanatical people. It's just like a different vibe. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah. And for me, I just, because there's so much of it that is alarming, like what you're saying about if you don't know if you could do it here. Well, that's why I just have to. It's the same with with politics or anything.
I mean, like if I was born there, like would I don't know.
Well, it's the same with politics and everything. So where if my family even disagrees, well, they're starting to realize a lot of the stuff. But for a while there, no one agreed with me, and I just had to be at peace with my reasons for why I thought, and realize that this is what I think is the wisest thing, and I don't need to impose that on anyone, because they're not going to change their mind. And I mean, I if I'm going to change their mind, it's going to take time. And anyway, so just being at peace with it just that allows you to realize that when there are people that call themselves the same thing and then doing extreme things, that's just the boats on the surface. That's just the semantics. They're just using the boats. They're not using what's under the surface.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Like always, like the extremes. Like you can take anything good and turn it into like the extremes. Like go completely fanatical, completely obscure. Which is like, interestingly enough, like I was watching recently like some atheist videos, like they're debating among themselves whether religion is good or not. And like for me, it's like they're missing like a really basic concept when they like, because most of the argument, like Sam Harris and such, especially with the wars in the world going on right now, like they're like, oh, religion is evil because it causes this thing. But like for me, they miss like a very basic concept of, wait a minute, it's not religion, it's fanaticism, and it's like ignorance that is causing these things. So like they just blame it the whole on religion, but perhaps it's like saying the far right, like the extreme right, is evil, so we shouldn't have right political parties at all. Or what do you think?
Yeah, it's like saying that a system is flawed, therefore we should throw out the entire system.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. I love that video, by the way. Like a teacher asks me if I believe in God. It took me a time to understand like the way you phrase the videos. It's like from the student's perspective, right?
Oh.
Because then like a teacher asks me, is he talking to a teacher or what's going on here?
Yeah, I've been experimenting with the titles, and I probably should.
But yeah, I love that one.
Oh,
and,
thank you.
I did want to... Sorry?
Oh, I was just saying thank you. I'm glad you liked it.
Oh, yeah. I love that one. And I wanted to ask you, like, perhaps if you could expand a bit on the... Like, you talk about your belief in God rooted in seeing all these beautiful patterns in the world and, like, pointing towards intelligent creation and the Fibonacci sequence, which, by the way, was amazing. I didn't know... Like, I consider myself a musician, and I didn't know it was the Fibonacci sequence. That pattern is part of, like, it's the foundation of Western music theory. I had no idea. I investigated that after watching your video, and I thought that was amazing.
I had a friend who helps me film and stuff, and we did a video maybe it was last year. But it's a bit long, but it's like 10 to 15 minutes just on that topic, and I have it unlisted. I'll publish it for you so that you can watch it if you want.
Oh, that would be amazing.
It's just him talking. He's a very good musician. He reminds me of you, and he does a deep dive on it, so that'll answer all those questions. But as far as the patterns, and I've been seeing some interesting conversations on YouTube about yes, the person whose channel it belongs to, they're curating and finding stories to publish because their whole purpose is trying to make a case for the evidence of God. Though I think an interesting thought experiment to conduct is to think, okay, if tomorrow suddenly some objective evidence were uncovered and we knew definitively that there was proof that God existed, what would happen? What would that look like? Everyone would then, most people, if you're logical, you would then change your behavior. You would tailor your behavior in the pursuit now that you know there's what there is. That's no longer belief. It's now living up to a new standard, a new expectation. It's very different. So then my question for the other teacher, I would say, so if you were God and you were creating a grand design in some form, wouldn't you make sure that there could never be that absolute proof? Because the absolute proof would negate the very value of belief
And faith.
Right. So that would be baked in. But anyways, your actual question is more about these patterns. And so it's mathematics. It's fascinating. The fact that these mathematical patterns, like Veritasium, which is such a great channel, just published a video about, 37. The number 37 is the most commonly random picked number.
Okay.
Random things like that, random facts like that. Well, how is that? And an atheist often, they'll say, well, okay, it's true. Even if they can't come up with an explanation, they'll say that there's some scientific explanation, but the very fact that there is a scientific explanation for me makes me feel that is in support. There's more support of
instead of it being random, right?
Right. Of a design of some sort. And that's why I like to detach the boats a bit and not worry about the semantics because of what you call that God. The idea is the values and the actions. Because if you were to live, here's another thought experiment. If you have an island, you land on an island, you're shipwrecked and you land on an island, there's a tribe of people living on this island. They've never had contact with the outside world. And they have their own form of God, which would be very interesting, and most do in history, no matter what culture you look at. That's another pattern. Okay, this tribe has no communication with anyone outside that island. They have their own God. Okay, they live, they die. If you were to ask one of these people that are in this debate now about what I published today, okay, and you were to say, do they go to heaven or hell? They would all say, well, they didn't accept Jesus, so they're going to go to hell.
Mm-hmm.
How is that logical, though?
Right.
How could that contend with the idea of, like, they had no exposure to it? But they had their own version of that with what they did have exposure to. So if that's the logic that causes me to have less care about the semantics of it.
For sure.
But yeah, it's just fascinating, all the patterns and the idea that it's just too. If it was all just random, there would be evolution. Would be like Darwinian theory would be the supreme explanation. But there seems to be more patterns than that. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm no mathematician, but watching mathematicians talk about it, especially mathematicians that delve into these philosophical questions, are very interesting.
Yeah, I've seen a few too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like you talked about the pattern in music. On one of the comments on that video, the viewer was saying a phrase that I've heard before, something like a little bit of science will push you away from God, but a lot of science will bring you back. Yeah. And I sort of resonated that with my journey with music, because when I was a teenager, I was more like a rocker, and like for some reason I just hated music theory. I wanted to come up with my own, like, oh no, screw, I don't want to learn that. I want to make up my own solos with my own scales. I was trying to reinvent the wheel because I thought that music theory would take the magic away from it.
Yeah, like it's the exact same for me with making movies and story, like writing a screenplay and story structure. I thought, I don't want to adhere to any structure, but you find out that there's deeper patterns. There's a reason that the structure resonates. It's not about it's not because it's a rule that's being imposed by Hollywood. It's because the hero's journey resonates there. Yes, because it resonates naturally. And So it's almost, you could make an argument that it's not a human created, it's not a
Right.
human invention, this pattern.
Not a human created rule. Yeah.
Right. It's the law of music,
Wow,
right?
yeah.
Or stories.
I love that.
Music created the pattern, the rules.
I love that. So cool that it happened the same to you with filmmaking as
Yeah.
me with music.
And the fact that it can happen with both
And I love the
would be an argument
Yeah.
for a
because
larger,
it's art, right?
a larger design than Darwinian theory, for sure. Because Darwinian
Mhm.
theory, what would Darwinian theory have to do with music and story structure?
Yeah, pretty much nothing.
How do we explain that?
It's the same like you say on the video. Like you can't explain the sunflower seeds. Like how does that connect with music, right?
Right.
With the
Well,
Fibonacci sequence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Fibonacci sequence
Mhm.
connects. So it's
And I like the other tangent that you were going on. Like you kind of stopped yourself, but I was enjoying quite a lot. Like how you said that if you were God, you wouldn't want there to be definite proof. Like you would make the argument that it's even more valuable that you can't know for sure. It's pretty cool. And I was reading the Silmarillion yesterday at night because I freaking love Lord of the Rings stuff.
Yeah, me too.
I mean I haven't finished that chapter, but it's when men get mad at the elves because they get jealous that they get to be immortal. And there's sort of a similar conversation like, oh, why do we have to take these promises for sure that there's something better waiting for us? Like we can't know for sure. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's gonna go somewhere along the lines of what you're saying.
That's interesting. Huh. That's interesting. I
Yeah,
haven't heard that
Tolkien
one.
is really good. I love
Have
like
you- Have you heard
I
of Signum
take that
University and Corey Olson, the Tolkien professor?
Corey Olson. It does ring a bell, but I'm not
Check him
sure.
out. It's a very small YouTube channel. I've been watching their stuff for years since like 2015, and
Okay.
They've been trying to create basically just him, but with a team of people. But it's non-profit. They're trying to create a. It started just as him trying to create an online Tolkien studies school.
Oh.
And he lives nearby here in New Hampshire, but I have never met him, but I've been watching his stuff. And then when
You
Rings
sold
of
me.
Power came out, yeah, you would like it. You would dig it. Like, it's really cool. And when Rings of Power came out, they flew him out to check. They got a bunch of YouTubers and they flew him out to watch
Oh yeah.
the first episode. And then he started praising it on his channel. And then he's never really been open to... He's always kind of taking this fence-sitting position where he won't openly criticize it, and so he got a lot of flack for that, sort of as being a sellout, sort of. But anyways, but he's very interesting to listen to. And once a week they do like a 3-hour podcast where they just dissect like 2 pages
Amazing.
each time. Signum
Amazing.
University, check it out. Yeah, it's cool.
Okay, I'm definitely gonna check it out. I'm a sucker for all things Tolkien.
Yeah, you would love it.
It's funny you talk about the Rings of Power because that thing, it's exactly I've been like pondering on that for some time. Like I knew exactly that happened. They flew YouTubers and like all these some sort of like Lord of the Rings influencers to watch the show, and like so many of them came out like supposedly loving, and I'm wondering like because like objectively speaking it's not good, but it made me wonder like can you some sort of like brainwash yourself because you're surrounded like oh my god they invited me to this like super important thing.
Now that I have a little bit of whatever you want to call it, traction or whatever, or a small audience, I was thinking if suddenly I were to get contacted, let's say okay Harry Potter's coming out, right?
Oh, the new one, right?
They're doing a remake or whatever. This is what the equivalent would be if Harry Potter, if they were to make it and then they were to say, hey Warren, would you like to come in and check it out? Of course I would do it. I would want to go watch it. And then if I were, there would be, if you're being honest with yourself, take something that you love or whatever, and then put yourself, you've been invited, you feel, they're making you feel important, you feel like you're part of something, and then to then be honest, and you know they're going to see your video. Would you be able to really say, I don't think this is going to be great, or these are the problems that I'm seeing, blah, 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 blah. I think you could try and do it objectively, but it's very difficult. So I think that's what you're talking about with this sort of...
It would be very difficult for sure.
If we're being honest with ourselves, but... Yeah.
it's hard. Even me, I went to the movie theater like at 1 a.m. the premiere of Star Wars: The Force Awakens, and the hype was insane. And like everyone was wearing costumes. I was like I was crying. Like I love Star Wars so much, and just being around all the people and all the hype, like it really lifted me up. To date, even to date, I don't know. Like I hate The Last Jedi and I hate the movie after that, but even today I don't know like if The Force Awakens is as bad, or maybe I just say that because I was there and I got all that hype.
I gotta catch up on the Star Wars. I haven't been watching them.
Well, not missing much. The Mandalorian, heck yeah.
I saw some of The Mandalorian. Yeah, I
That
heard
one
it
is
dropped
amazing.
off in later seasons, but I've been watching so far. It's really good.
Yeah, I watched first and second season. The second one is pure art. I love it. The ending is super magical.
I'll check it out.
So yeah, definitely go for it. Oh, I don't know if you like The X-Files. It's one of my favorite
I've never
shows.
seen The X-Files.
Well, you also talked about on that video that we were discussing, like all the things that we don't know, what happens after we die, the near-death experiences from people that they report. Here's my favorite quote from The X-Files. It's Fox on the end of season 9 or so. He talks about the motto of the show. He says, "I want to believe. I want to believe that the dead are not lost to us, that they speak to us as part of something greater than us, greater than any alien force. And if you and I are powerless now, I want to believe that if we listen to what's speaking, it can give us the power to save ourselves." What are your thoughts on that, and what's your philosophy on? You think we're more than skin and bones, that we go on?
Yeah, I think it's a great quote, because you definitely want to think that there's more. It's definitely scary, I think, to think the atheist view is scary, but that's not why I believe there's more. Because I've observed when I live as though God exists, I've observed differences. There's earlier we were just talking about how do we attribute all these patterns. How do we also attribute instinct, emotion, the intangible, so you get a feeling about someone if something's off, or you feel like you're being watched. These weird emotions, these things that there's no explanation for. The hero's journey. How do we... the hero's journey. And then also, I do think there's a strong argument for when you start doing the classic deduction on an atheist of, okay, but why is that bad? What's the difference between good and evil? Why don't you just indiscriminately kill? Well, because it's wrong. Why is it wrong? Because you shouldn't kill people. Why? And then you eventually get to a point. So that's the morality argument.
Yeah.
The fact that every culture has... It's not such a crazy idea. It sounds like such a crazy idea, but if it were such a crazy idea, why would every culture in human history have some form of a larger...
Right. Without any connections, the Mayans, the Indians, the Egyptians, all of them believed that we go on somehow.
Yes. The fact that they're not connected, there's no other explanation for it. It's unless you have some evolutionary theory about how evolution has resulted in this instinct within us, biologically speaking, but I've not heard any explanation.
Perfect. And then just to end it, just on a more lighthearted note, I wanted to ask you, because of all of this J.K. Rowling hype, I just wanted to know, what's your Hogwarts house, if you have done the test?
I've never done the actual, I guess online is what it would be. But obviously what most people say probably, but I do. I think I would fit the test. Gryffindor, I think that would be the... Yeah, and obviously that's what Harry is. And when I played Hogwarts Legacy, that was my first house. And
Nice.
That's the one I would instinctually go to.
Makes sense. You should do the test. I thought about this question before, and I thought, I'm sure it's going to say Gryffindor.
See,
I'm Ravenclaw.
there you go. There you go. I can see that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here, Warren.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gabriel. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for being around, and definitely gave me some of the conversation, the type of conversation that is the reason why I funded this channel. Cool. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Good luck with the channel. That's cool. I'll stay tuned and I'll keep watching what you do. Keep it up.
That's good.
You're awesome. You're awesome at this.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.